Well, hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Johnny, and you're watching Hillbilly Modeling. So this is going to be part 11 of our diesel tug by Lindberg here. And when we left off in our last video, we were building up the lower superstructure. Just a quick note, we use this semi-glossy mixture there, 50-50 between the matte Vallejo and the gloss Vallejo acrylic clear, so that we can get a satin look to kind of cut down on the shininess there on all of those doors. Well, I also went in and I decided to go ahead and hit this red here with the same semi-gloss. We did that also on the bridge portion here, so to kind of cut that really shiny red down some. I mean, that red really looked good, but it's kind of a little bit too shiny for say a working boat. So I decided to cut that down, and it's just going to look much better overall, I think. I hope. So we got some things to do. We really need to get our bridge mounted to the lower superstructure. But before we do that, we need to take care of a few things here. Put the windows in the bridge, and then we still got our ship's wheel and the binnacle to put in here, which we haven't finished painting up yet. So let's jump down to the bench and get to work on that. So we're going to be using this Testors enamel, and this is the brass, and just to kind of detail out the parts that are going inside of our bridge section here. I'm going to do the center of the ship's wheel and just kind of try to paint a circle here as best I can. So we'll get this hub for the ship's wheel all painted up here. And next, we can start working on the binnacle itself. Now, the binnacle is that stand that holds the boat's compass and whatever navigation. Usually it's just the compass, but now I'm not a nautical guy, so I can't say for sure what's all included in the binnacle, but I do know the compass is there. So anyway, it has these little wings here that we can paint up on the left and right side of it, and then of course the top section of it there, the hood for the binnacle, we will paint that brass as well. Now, I'm not sure how much this is going to be seen through the windows on the bridge, but it's there. It makes us feel good. So this is the windshield that we These are the windows in the bridge that we fitted much earlier on in the build, and I'm just trying to wipe off all the fingerprints on it. We don't want any of that up inside the actual bridge section there where it might show through. So what we have to do now is get it into place. Now, the way I cut this and fitted it and added that little extra rail around the bottom there is all so that we can just snap this into place and we don't have to worry about it falling out, because the tension from this Lexan type plastic is going to hold it in for us. And here you'll probably notice that I did put a glove on. It's kind of because my fingers were kind of sticking to the paint a little bit, even though it was fully cured. But anyway, this is the look of our windows in place there. And I'm just going to take a cotton swab on the inside here and kind of clean up anything where I may have added some extra fingerprints there. We don't want to seal that up inside the cockpit. I almost called it a cockpit again. Well, actually I did. But the bridge section, because that would be hard to take care of later on. So these are the doors that lead out of the bridge out onto the wings there, and I did false a window in there on the inside just in case it can be seen, and I gave it a little brown coat of paint there, and that's kind of how it fits there. So I am just going to cement this to that one wall and then and across the top. That way, as this bridge section kind of spreads out a little bit, we don't have to worry about our doors popping off. And then we have the other door that goes onto the bridge section here. This too, from the inside. So now we can go ahead and assemble our ship's wheel to the post that it goes on. I'm sure it has another name other than post, but somebody let me know down in the comments what this thing's called. My nautical terms are somewhat lacking, but yeah, we're just going to get the ship's wheel cemented up. And then when it comes to our binnacle there, I think we need a little bit of extra color. So I'm just going to add a little bit of silver again. We've got these little domes on these little brass wings that are out there. And I don't know if they're lights or actual instruments, but we're just going to add a little bit of silver to that, just in case we can see it through the those large windows on our bridge section there. So when it comes to cementing everything together here, we're going to use the Tamiya. And we'll go ahead and set our ship's wheel into place. And I did just use a cocktail stick there to drop some paint into that little square where it locates that item for us. And then we'll do the same thing for our binnacle. Now I'm not totally sure that that silver paint is fully dry yet, so I'm just going to use my tweezers to set that into place. And that actually looks really good. It's going to be in there. We didn't do anything else to build up inside there. So now when it comes to the exterior of our bridge here, we've got 2 windows that goes on either side. And it would be nice if they were kind of lined up. So I'm using some 2mm Tamiya masking tape there to lay down a little guide for us. That way we can get the spacing correct, because on this kit there are no locator holes or pins and all that. You just kind of stick them in place there. So me with my crooked eye, yeah, it's kind of a good idea to have a guide there so that we don't get our windows one higher than the other. And we'll just set those into place and make any small adjustments. Now, by using the thick Tamiya cement here, it allows us to kind of move these around before it actually sticks in place. Now all we got to do is the other side, and that's what those windows look like. And I did my best to kind of get them exact from side to side. Now right there where I was pointing, that's where our ladder is going to go that we made up to go up to the upper section there, the upper deck. So this is our last look of our ship's wheel and our binnacle here, because now we're going to take and seal that all in. And again, we're using the Tamiya thick cement here, and I'm just putting it around on the inside edge where it's going to make contact with that rather large location ridge on the deck itself. And then all we got to do is press it into place. Now we put it on the part that we're putting onto the deck. That way if there's any little squeeze out, it'll be on the inside and it won't be seen. So with that done, we need to kind of clamp this into place because there is a small gap up towards the forward edge of the bridge. And I am using a little bit of that lint-free cloth that we use when we stained our base there. I just cut out some squares for that. That way we're not going to damage the paint, or at least I hope we're not damaging the paint. Doing plastic to plastic here and putting tension on this. So those little pads right there should give us that extra protection there on the paint. And as I'm sure all you guys know, it's always a good idea to have some extra protection. And there we are, all clamped up, and we're just going to set this off to the side and let that dry. And as you can see, that little gap that we had at the very front of the bottom of the bridge there, that's all closed up for us. So we're in good shape here. Also, we need to go ahead and do a little bit of touch up on the red. This is where we had masked it earlier when we were painting, and we weren't sure where these little wings coming off the bridge were going to end. So we'll just touch that up. So we're going back to the silver now, and use that to fill in the reflector portion of our spotlight that goes on to the deck section above the bridge. And just very carefully here, I'm just going to paint this up. And once we get this painted up, we'll have to set that off to the side and let this enamel dry and fully cure for us before we do anything else to it. So that's kind of what it looks like there. And that's going to look nice, I hope. And we also have our navigation lights. And we're going to paint the kind of the clear part area for it there with this base coat of silver, and we'll come back in later and add some color to it, but it's going to look, I think, really good if you just give it a nice base silver first. So we have the left and right navigation lights there, and then we also have the lights that goes onto our mast. And I think the top one is white, and then we have two others that I also believe these are white as well. But I've done a little bit of research, and I don't really know for sure. But we're just going to go with them being white, I think. Now, while we got the paint out, we're going to go ahead and paint our horns up. So our tugboat's horns here, we have 3 horns on a center section there, and we're going to go ahead and paint that up with the brass. So we've given our silver for all of our lights time to dry, and we're going to start off with our red, which is the X27. We also have our green, which is our X25, and then we also have the gray, which is the X19 there. We're going to use that for the clear white lights. So first off, we're going to do the red. Now the red is port. So that's the port side of our boat, which would be the left. From all my research, I'm not a Navy guy, I don't know for sure, but that's what Wikipedia told me. And then we're going to use the green on our starboard side, which is the right side of the vessel. And then with the X19, we'll use that gray on the lights that are supposed to be white, kind of giving it a look like there's a lens there. Of course, you know, it won't look white until the lights are turned on. So now we have, we're going back here to our spotlight. And I think I'm going to try to make a lens for it. And we're going to use the medium CA glue for that. And I'm just going to drop in some medium CA glue here. And it might be kind of thick. So we're going to have to give this plenty of time to dry. And we'll see what it turns out to be. But it would be nice if we had like a little gloss kind of lens thing effect going on there. So there it is. And I am using a clothespin here to help hold it so I can set it down and it stay facing directly up. So everything dries nice and level. So moving back to our superstructure here, we can go ahead and take our clamps off here. And I've given it plenty of time to dry. That way, I don't have to worry about a gap opening up. And it seems that our little pad stuck a little bit there. But it's going to be fine. We're okay. That's the reason why we used these, so we didn't scratch any paint off. And as you can see there, the little gap that we had at the very front of the bridge section has closed up with the lower section of the superstructure. So I'm going to go ahead and put our navigation lights here into place. A little bit of that thick Tamiya cement there to help hold them in. And they just fit into those rectangular slots. And there we are. So that is the port side, and then, of course, the starboard side on the opposite. So we're going to move on to our funnel. Now I'm going to use this acrylic marker here. This is white, and I'm hoping that I can control this better than the white paint with a brush, and use that to color in the S that is on our actual funnel there. So I'm going to do a couple of test runs here on a piece of cardboard, kind of get a feel of how much paint we've got in the tip and kind of where that tip lands, because it's a little bit difficult to judge it, and we don't want to really run off the edge of our S, which is a relief on the funnel. So with that, yeah, I think we're going to be okay. I just want to make sure that we've got enough paint in there that it doesn't show up too splotchy. I imagine we're going to have several coats of this to get through filling in that S there. So after taking a few test runs there on our cardboard, I'm ready to commit to the actual part here. And as you can see, it kind of looks like we're going to have to add at least a second coat, probably a third, to make sure that we've got all the edges done correctly. Now we can go back in, with a paintbrush and clean it up if we get too far over the edge there. But it seems to be working much better than maybe if I had used a paintbrush to do this. But then again, if it turns out terribly wrong, we can always strip it all off and start over. So that is one coat, and we got a couple of spots there where we're going to have to go back over it. The big relief here is that it didn't strip up any of the black paint while we were putting it on. That's a good thing. So I did end up doing 3 coats on each of the S's. I let one side dry before I did the opposite side. That way I didn't risk sticking my finger in it and making a real mess out of it. And it is a bit glossy, the white is, so we're going to use our semi-clear coat here, our semi-gloss clear coat that we put over top of all the red parts that we had painted earlier, and cut down on that real shiny acrylic white there so that it kind of blends in with the rest of the boat there. And after spraying it with our semi-gloss, that's the result, which is much better than the really glossy stuff because it doesn't show up as many of the little flaws that's in my paint job there. So moving on to these placards here, dispatch number 9, which goes on to the wings of the bridge there. I'm going to attempt to do some dry brushing on this, trying to get that dispatch number 9 to show up. However, I am having trouble with it here, but I don't want the silver to get onto the base of this placard. So I think we're going to have to go with actually trying to paint this on with a fine brush. So we'll quit trying to do the dry brushing technique here and just go in with regular painting. And the reason why I tried the dry brushing is because the relief on these letters and the number is not that proud of the part, but we're just going to have to go with it here and paint it in. We're going to have to come back in with the satin black and kind of touch it up wherever we get a little bit too much paint on it there, because I'm not so good at this. But we're going to give it our best shot, and then we'll just clean it up. So after those have dried, we need to place them onto the bridge section here. So I'm gone back to the 2mm masking tape there to kind of give us a straight edge underneath the red line there that we have going around the bridge. And that way we can make sure that we get them equal on both sides. Now, I guess you could always just push that placard up against the red line there. But I think having a little bit of that white showing there will actually look much better. So with a little bit of the thick Tamiya cement here, we're going to drop this into place. And we're just using the masking tape there as our guide. And once we're satisfied with that, now this was a test run, we'll put the actual glue on and drop it in. I like to make test runs on something like this. That way I'm more comfortable with doing this without making a mistake. So with our placards in place here, that looks pretty good. So we're ready to move on and move on to the next step. So I think it's a good time to go ahead and build up our funnel deck here. So we're just going to use the same technique that we did with gluing our two pieces of our superstructure together, using the Tamiya thick cement there. That way it's kind of gap filling and it holds really, really well. So we'll get our funnel into place, and then we can go ahead and put our vent in as well. Just put a little bit of that extra thin there on the bottom of the funnel. And it has this nice big locator circle here to actually set that into place. And it does have a little bit of room to move around, so I'm going to have to make sure that I've got it adjusted correctly. And once I make sure that my vertical and left and right looks good, we can just go ahead and set this off to the side and let that dry while we continue building other sections of the boat. So at this point, we're ready to actually set the superstructure down onto the hull of the tugboat, down on the main deck here. And we're just going to use the thick cement once again and cover the inside edge there. And we'll set it down into place and make sure that it's pressed down nice and firmly. That way we don't have any issues with gaps, because we did a lot of work with the sanding and fitting and everything here. It would be a shame to mess it up now. So I am going to go back to these X-Acto clamps that we used before and help pull down the superstructure to the main deck there, and that will help because, you know, the funny thing about cement, it can be kind of slick until it grabs hold, and we don't want it to dry and not be fully seated. So putting the clamps on, I think, is probably a good idea. So in the meantime, we can go ahead and fit those ladders that we built up earlier in the build. And they need to be vertical to the actual water line, which makes perfectly good sense because you don't want sailors climbing up a crooked ladder. that could be bad. So assuming that our vessel is on a calm ocean or inlet or something, you know, we want those ladders to be vertical, which means we need to trim up these ladders and fit them so that the ladder rails there don't extend up above the deck. So I've gone ahead and trimmed those off, and we're just double checking our fit and making sure that it is vertical to the actual water line of the vessel. I know it looks crooked from this angle, but trust me, it's going to work out, or at least I hope it works out. So yeah, test fitting is always a good idea, and we're going to do that with each and every one of these ladders, just to make sure that it looks like it's supposed to be there. So we're going to cement these into place with the medium CA glue because I want to be able to move forward with the other things that we have to do, and the medium CA glue will take hold rather quickly, and that's why we do all that test fitting and test setting in of our ladders. So we did have this other ladder that we built to get up onto the top deck there above the bridge. So we have to mark it and trim it off and check our fit. And once we're satisfied with how everything fits, and you may have to do a little bit of sanding and everything there, but these decks are all slanted at different degrees. So in order for us to get this ladder actually vertical, trimming is necessary. And of course, you can always sand and do whatever else you need to do just to make sure that the ladder lines up correctly. And we do have to be especially careful here because we don't have any alignment marks other than that gap that we left with the railing that we actually made for the upper deck up here. So we want to make sure that our ladder is going to line up with that. And yeah, we can just cement that into place. And then we can go ahead and attach these little short railings that come off of the wings of the bridge there. And if you remember, when we built these up, we did drill holes into those wing sections there, and they just slide right in. And however, you know, it's a good idea to run a drill bit back through that to clean out any paint so you don't have a fit issue. And we can do the opposite side as well. Now with that done, we can go ahead and remove our clamps, and we can start fitting that rear ladder, which was not included in the kit either, or either. Well, either way. So anyway, we're going to line this up, and we're going to mark where we need to trim off the top of the ladder, of course. We had already fitted the angle at the bottom, but now this is our final fitting there, and we're just going to snip those off, and we'll come back in with a little bit of white paint and clean that up once we have all of our ladders in place, because each and every one of them needs just a little bit of touch of paint there. Yeah, I think I've got the angle right. Now we get one chance at this, so a little bit of CA glue up on the deck there, and then we'll also add CA glue to the bottom of the rungs of the ladder. And I will stick it right at the top of the deck there, getting them even. You gotta kind of eyeball this, and we got like pretty much one shot to do it, and just press it into place, and then we're pretty much stuck. So I hope we like it. So with that done, we can go ahead and start putting in all of our railing here on this deck above the main section of the superstructure. I'm just going to use, to me, extra thin here, where it'll soak down in around the vertical posts here, and that will secure it because these are kind of fragile anyway, and nobody should be touching these rails. So we're going to affix them into place, and we'll get the next section of the rail into place here. Trying to line all these holes back up is a little bit tedious, but we just want to make sure that everything is pressed down and they're all bottomed out. That way we don't have any buckling on our rails there. And then we can just go ahead and cement those into place too, going down the line from one rail to the other, putting just a little bit of that to me extra thin there. And that should be more than enough to hold it into place. So I'm going to move back to some the thick cement here, and we can go ahead and stick our funnel deck into place. I'm not sure if that's the official term for it, but we can just press it right down, and we did put the cement on the inside of the edge there. That way we don't get any squeeze out between the deck and the vertical sections here of the superstructure there. Just make sure everything's fully seated. Okay, so there we go. We've got our ladders on, and we've got our handrails on here on our intermediate deck, I guess, just above the lower superstructure here. So we got that taken care of, and we've got our funnel on, and we got that nice white S painted in there. And yeah, so it's really coming together However, we still got some more things to do. We still have to do our lifeboat and our life rings that hang on the rails there. So we got to make those up. And I'm leaving off this handrail, the railing off of the top of the bridge section here, so that we can get our rigging done, because we got to rig all that, and we got to tie down the lifeboat and all that. So we're going to leave that stuff off, and then we do have we've got something to fix, and I should have thought about this. I didn't really put it all together, but when we use that medium CA glue here on our spotlight, I did not coat over the enamel paint. And I should have done that with an acrylic, I think, because what happened was it, if you can see it there, it kind of dissolved all that shiny silver enamel paint there and suspended it in the CA glue. And that's not the look that we were going for. It's definitely not what we wanted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drill that out again, because it's just easier to drill out. And that was a very thick dot. Well, it wasn't really a dot. It was it was kind of a pool of CA glue that we put in there. So we're going to drill that out, and probably layer it in a little bit at a time, you know. So we'll drill it out, we'll repaint it with the silver, we'll coat it with the acrylic clear, and then we'll add 2 or 3 layers of the medium CA glue there to build up on top of it. That way we can kind of monitor whether or not it's going to do what it did that time. And that's not the look we want, so we're going to fix that. So yeah, that's about it. I think in the next video, though, we should be able to finish this whole thing up. So special thanks to all my subscribers. It's because of you guys that I keep making these videos, and I hope that you enjoyed this one. And if you did, don't forget to give a like. And if you're new to the channel, I hope today earned your subscription. So I hope to see everybody on Friday. So until then, you guys stay safe.